everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Grumble, and we're back today with the final entry in our Deathloop lore series. I wanted to delve deeper into the backstories of our esteemed visionaries, and so I just went and did. In this series, each week, I've given you the inside scoop on their characters, tidbits, and trivia you might have missed. Obviously, be aware that these videos are filled with spoilers for the game's critical path, as well as side quests, and well, none more so than the video about Colt himself. In this final video of the series, we finally get to talk all about Colt Vahn, Deathloop's incredible main campaign lead. Thanks to official documentation, we actually have a birth date for our dear Captain Vahn, 1911. So by the time the loop starts, he should already be in his 50s. But he's not, so what gives? Let's start at the beginning of the game. Colt wakes up on a cold, damp beach, and he doesn't know anything. Not who he is, not what he's doing there, not why he's not simply rolling over and going back to sleep. Though he does that some days. As the day goes on and then starts over and over and over, he pieces together the parts of the puzzle that he'd forgotten so well. He used to be a pilot for the MAF, Motherland Air Force. There's not much known about the Motherland except it's presumably a nation beyond Blackreef. Going by the ubiquitous iconography, it is or used to be a major force in international politics and history. The Motherland sent cartographers out across the world first in the early 1900s. Then, when Blackreef was found, at the time an old fishing village, and the cartographers worked out that something wasn't quite right, the Motherland Army set up Operation Horizon, a joint operation between the military and a contingent of military scientists from the Aerial Survey Service. This was in 1931. By 1938, Operation Horizon had worked on understanding and, if possible, harnessing the anomaly. They had no idea it was a time loop, and the anomaly itself at the time mainly affected perception. People started seeing things, in short. There was some temporal weirdness, and scientists did theorize that time dilation was a risk upon entering the anomaly, though. After years of incremental progress, read fuck all happening, the head of the operation, Berezin, was given an ultimatum to hurry up or fuck off the island. Researchers were waiting for the anomaly to stabilize enough to be able to venture inside, but when reports cropped up predicting that the phenomenon would destabilize sooner than expected, the head scientist moved the schedule forward by sacrificing the ejection seat, life support, landing gear shock absorbers, and provisions. Screw pilot safety, right? Well, that pilot was Colt. He'd said yes, even under those conditions, in a desperate effort to keep the promotion back to captain, and now couldn't afford to back out. Bad things happened. Operation Horizon was scrapped shortly after the incident, and the installation made defunct. Fun fact, the stabilizer antenna that you see looming over the island is a structure built by Operation Horizon to literally stabilize the anomaly and make it easier to run experiments. This is not the thing Charlie refers to as Wenji's oversized croquet wicket. That's the great big piece of science she built in the middle of her lab tower. But what happened to Colt? Well, he got on the test plane, the same Raketo plan as you find in the game, and flew it straight into the anomaly. He disappeared for almost 17 years. Time did indeed dilate, and Colt lived in the time loop for all those years. He did manage to free himself, crashing a plane he must have rigged up pretty much from scratch into the coast of another island. The Motherland declared him dead several weeks after his disappearance. He returned in 1955, fully cognizant of the fact that he'd just been stuck living the same day over and over again, while on the outside of the anomaly, 17 years had passed. He was promptly admitted to the Jargay Institute, a mental institution. Well, I say admitted. He was involuntarily committed for delusions. This meant he had no chance of finding Lila Blake, Juliana's mother. Let's go back. Colt and Lila met during Operation Horizon. Colt was the pilot, Lila was a researcher on Yakar Station. Their code names were Longshot and Scribe in classified documentation. They fell in love and became involved against regulations, which is why Colt was demoted from captain to lieutenant, actually. Still, the two lived together in a secret apartment and would not give up seeing each other. When Colt was offered the promotion for the accelerated test flight schedule, he agreed. Never mind that Lila reminded him in a letter that a promotion for uncertain survival prospects makes a shaky foundation for a family. Still, he went. Colt did not know that Lila was expecting a baby when he got on that plane. In the apartment they used to share, you can find a fragment of her obituary, in which it's mentioned she is survived by a daughter, Juliana. This might have been how Colt found out for sure, unless he went to the VAC facility first and found the correspondence relating to moving Lila back to the mainland in order to hide her pregnancy. It's likely that this happened before the test flight in order to keep it from Colt. Anyhow, the obituary couldn't have been in that secret apartment unless Colt brought it there at some point before the loop. They loved each other very much, and Colt must have been devastated when he couldn't find her. Yes, if you were ever wondering why Colt has a patch that says pony, that's Lila's nickname for him, because, his name is Colt. So while Colt was locked up at the Institute and probably being drugged up to the gills, the Aeon program was being founded. In 1960, roundabout, Igor learned of Colt and found out where he was and went and emancipated him, promising that Aeon believed him. Colt led Igor back to Blackreef. In Aeon propaganda, this turned into the two of them quote-unquote discovering Blackreef together during an expedition. It's unclear how Igor learned of Blackreef, whether he knew any details about Operation Horizon past its existence before he met Colt, or how he knew how to look for Colt in the first place. These days, Igor considers Colt his friend, but Colt simply feels used by Aeon. So why did he agree to help Aeon? As head of security, Colt was then not only responsible for the protection of the Visionaries, but also the loop itself and the true purpose of the Aeon program itself. This put him in a central position, and a position wherein it was permissible, and indeed expected, for him to keep secrets from everybody else. He never gave away the code to his tunnels, not even to Juliana. He kept most things from his past very close to his vest, and even though he was such a crucial part of the program, he never really let himself get comfortable. Pre-loop Colt was goofy, sweet, and a lot less world-weary than the man we meet at the beginning of the game. Still, that personality shines through in many moments through the story, especially when he's talking to Juliana. He's hardly vain, but proud. He signed up to fly the test plane in an effort to regain his rank and reputation, albeit that was also to be able to provide for Lila. He keeps a photo of her on his minicom terminal with a handwritten note from her to never give up. In 1961, Aeon bought everything, and the motherland reacted unimaginatively and sent spies. Beetle Queen, Starbird, and Redfowl, with Redfowl being the leader, Major Sullohern. A lot of the pre-loop intel we have comes from their observation logs. However, Starbird and Beetle Queen poisoned Redfowl when they decided to stay on Blackreef forever rather than go back to the mainland. Since they dumped the body before the loop began, they still worry that someone will find out. One of the other Colts, whom you meet in the Horizon bunker in Cold's Bay, where he's come to collect a tape of Lila, reveals that one possible motivation Colt had to stick with the Aeon program and return to Blackreef was to try and get back to 1938. He says, "Use Aeon like it was using me." Hoping to perhaps find the tools to make the reverse jump that he made in 1938, Colt wanted, through the wonders of science, to rewind and get back to that time, to never having discovered Blackreef in the first place, and get back to Lila. Colt hates what the anomaly has done to them, to him, to everybody. He wants to free himself and Juliana, and yet, so many times he's failed to break the loop before. Why? At the beginning of the game, you'd be forgiven for doubting Colt's sanity. In short, it appears he's cracked. His continued attempts at breaking the loop and being killed over and over again have taken their toll. Reprise, his slab, which is innate and can't be removed, also means he can die 3 times as often as ordinary Eternalists or Visionaries, probably affecting him even worse, as he literally rewinds twice before actually looping back to morning. Over the course of the story, Colt becomes more and more assured as he regains more of his memories and finds out more about the past and his history of Blackreef. He very likely made good use of everyone underestimating him in order to deceive them about his true intentions. His two weaknesses are Frank and Juliana, but he deceived even them successfully in the end. That too must have been hard. On Black Reef, the revival tour, he is still witty and talkative, but also tired and angry and desperate, which, to be fair, only makes him funnier. Colt is incredibly engaging, and same as Juliana, the perfect lead. The chemistry between them as familiar antagonists is amazing, and the writing and the banter is really, really good. A lot of Colt's regrets live under the surface. Still, his personality is present and distinct through his narration and reactions, the environmental storytelling, and the gameplay. As for the visionaries, and I'll be talking about Juliana in particular in a second, all of them were actually decent at socializing before first day, as photos of them prove. The LPP, Colt's loop protection protocol, actually forced everyone apart and helped in furthering resentments, which is what Colt intended, to be able to take them out from the inside once the time is right to break the loop. To make it plain, the LPP is Colt's Trojan horse. Now, for the two closest relationships Colt has on Black Reef during first day. Juliana and Colt have an antagonistic relationship. She resents him for not remembering her and her mother, and also for wanting to break the loop and destroying paradise. Or, if not paradise, then at least the playground. Throughout the story, the two talk to each other over radio, with Juliana by turns taunting Colt and trying to persuade him to stop trying to break the loop. In the end, Colt's, the player's, final choice is whether to literally step over Juliana's dead body in order to break the loop. That, to me, makes it less a choice for or against the Aeon program and continuing to exploit the anomaly, and much more about the player's relationship with Juliana. Of course, if you're role-playing it as a Colt who is desperate to leave after being stuck on Black Reef twice in his life, then you're going to have to bite the bullet, literally. But if you're playing as a Colt who forgot why he came to Black Reef in the first place, the things that scared him about the project, and things that drew him to it too, then the choice is 50-50, or 30-30-30, keeping in mind that you can kill Juliana in the duel and still choose to maintain the loop just by sitting back down. Considering how many times Colt has attempted to break the loop and, according to Juliana, came back around to seeing things her way every time, this is not uncharted territory for either of them. It's just that Colt can't remember. In the lead up to first day, the two seem to have had a companionable, if perhaps sometimes stilted, relationship going. Learning that Juliana as his daughter must have thrown Colt for a loop. And for Juliana, it must have been so strange to finally meet her father and for him to be so much younger than he should be. But she teased him, he tried to be a dad sometimes. They both need practice. There is much more in-game lore to observe the depth of Frank's feelings for Colt, but precious little on how Colt felt. Part of this is, of course, that Colt does not remember anything that came before, but there are a few things. The floating messages when Colt revisits Frank's club on Freestead Rock in the morning, for one thing, showing clearly that they had, at the very least, a physical relationship. From something tentative, Frank showing Colt how to touch, to something knowing, I can make him scream. This was no one-night stand. Colt and Frank spent a lot of time together prior to first day and through a great many loops, overseeing the construction of new buildings and vetting Eternalist candidates, and later also eliminating them if they turned out to be traitors, or at the very least, broke an interrogation. Those two are not necessarily the same. Juliana seemed to have known about it, as Colt records his 60 seconds with her and says, I've got to say Frank, don't I? It sounds more personal than just his duty as Aeon's head of security. The way his voice drops into a conversational tone when he says it, and that his first question is whether Frank will read this, suggests something private, not something connected to the program and their roles in it. Juliana seems to understand this. So let's wrap this up with a handy little animation, shall we? In the 1900s, the motherland sent cartographers. In 1911, our hero is born. In 1931, Operation Horizon begins to investigate the anomaly. In 1937, the motherland government threatens to defund the operation if no tangible results will be forthcoming. In 1938, Colt is sent into the anomaly on the test flight in Iraq and ends up trapped in a time loop for the first time. In 1955, he reappears and is involuntarily committed for delusions. Around 1960, the Aeon program is funded and Igor emancipates Colt from the Djargay Institute. In 1961, Aeon acquires the old military installation on Black Reef. Igor and Colt discover the island and start recruiting Eternalists. In 1963, after 2 years of construction, first day begins. And that, my friends, is all about Colt, his history with Operation Horizon and his time on Black Reef, take 2. It took me approximately 5 seconds to fall in love with him, and I hope that if you have played Deathloop or you're still going to, it'll be the same for you. If you enjoyed this video and indeed this series, please leave a like and a comment on your way out, it's really much appreciated. There are links in the description below for ways to support this channel and my creative work in general. Check those out if you want. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's next. Also check out